So I'm not going to wrap anybody's knuckles for drinking out of plastic water bottles. You know, I did do the FYE thing at Cal State Northridge for the 7,000 freshman class there, and I rather tactlessly mentioned to the president that I didn't care for being handed this water bottle, so I may have sabotaged myself. They were actually doing really cool things. One of the unexpected discoveries of writing this book has been how much people love to talk about their trash and explore it and get into it. Endlessly fascinated. You know, the kids at Marymount University, they had this one class had to wear their trash for a week on their backs. You know, and it's like one. Well, yeah, and it was a voyage of discovery for them. You know, some of them looked like they had their little rucksacks, and others looked like Sherpa guides going up the mountain, and it was really informative. The Northridge kids did this great art projects that kind of was inspired by the artists in residence in San Francisco who work at the dump and are in Garbology. So it's really been kind of interesting to see just the trash energy that talking about it generates. I think part of it is that there's this hidden world aspect of our, I guess I'm supposed to do some slides here, right? They didn't tell me how to work this thing. Here we go. There's this hidden world aspect of our trash, which is kind of fascinating in itself because you need really big blinders to hide the biggest thing that we make. You know, it's our leading export in America is trash. And we hide it in plain sight in places like this. This is what I call LA's garbage mountain, the largest active landfill until a couple of months ago in the country. And you can see it kind of dwarfs that city, down, subdivision down in the lower corner. It's a big honking place of garbage, and that's where we entomb the evidence that we are, in fact, the trashiest people on the planet here in America. And it's interesting because we do manage to hide our trash, not because we're making it disappear, but we're managing it. You ever notice we have waste management? We don't have waste killers or waste eliminators. We have management, which is a euphemism for, seem to just be clicking at random here. There we go. Euphemism for hiding it, for moving it and making geographic features out of it, which is what we do. And our wastefulness, and the reason I ended up doing this book is it came off of a couple other environmentally themed books I had worked on. And it turns out waste is really connected to all the big problems that we have. Our economy, energy, environment, health, all are tied to our wastefulness. And just oddly enough, the biggest thing we make is one of the hardest things for us to see clearly. The flip side of that, and part of what I've discovered in the course of these kinds of presentation, is that once you drag the trash out of hiding and start having a conversation about it and look at the value of an empty trash can or the harm caused by a full one, people get really energized and excited and start to realize that of all the big insurmountable problems that we face as a society and a culture, waste is the one area that anyone can do something about and see an instant result from it, have a payback and feel like they're having an impact. Because not being wasteful is pretty much a winning strategy in almost anything, in work, in life. You know, the epigraph of this book quotes my grandma, who was a depression survivor, and she said, you know, waste isn't a sin, but it is pretty stupid. And she was, you know, referring to like cleaning the peas off my plate or something, but her wisdom has a larger application. And this slide, if you don't believe that individuals can have a big impact, that's a year's worth of trash for this family I write about, the Johnson family, after the composting, after the recycling. That was it. They had changed the way they lived and saved a lot of money and lived better lives. So I think when you talk about something like trash, it can't be wonkish, it can't be all about policy and we're killing ourselves kind of. So you need stories, you need people, and then you sneak the wonkery into it. So I started with this family, this couple. Is that side? No, there you go. The Gaston family. I begin the book with the story of the Gastons. They were a retired couple in Chicago, a chemist, retired teacher. But as they grew old and infirm, they became hoarders, and they hoarded their trash. They could not part with it, and eventually they were trapped in their house and then ultimately buried alive and had to be rescued near death. And this is what the rescuers found, just a bit of it. And the thing about the gases is people say, well, why do you want to focus on this aberration? What can we learn from someone who makes this much trash? And the thing is, this is what we all look like. This is how much trash we are all making. That quantity of trash, they accumulated about 5 to 6 tons, of course, across 2 years, is absolutely the average amount of trash that the average American makes. On average, 7.1 pounds of trash a day. That's 1.3 tons a year. If you kept it in your house, you'd look like that too. We make our own garbage mountains. 102 tons across the average American lifetime. It's not an easy thing to picture. I try to find ways to illustrate big numbers. So in life, we get one grave when we're buried. You get 1,100 of them to bury your trash. That's how much it takes. Pretty much a whole cemetery. You've heard of America's obesity problem. Our trash is obese. We make twice as much trash as the average European. Japanese citizen, about 2.5 pounds of trash a day compared to our 7 pounds. I had some very spirited discussions at some high schools where there's strong Asian student presence about why that might be happening. It was fascinating. We are the masters of landfills, of making garbage mountains. Look at some of the ones at the top of the list. They're not into making garbage mountains. They're doing other things with their trash. But we have made it and elevated it to an art form. 69% is the best data I could find. Only 24% recycling. That's where we are after decades of trying to make recycling the go-to solution. And you look at this place. It took 60 years. It's 130 million tons. It's 500. You stand atop. I stood atop this. You're on top of 500 feet of trash. It's a lot of history there. Again, it's hard to imagine 130 million tons. If this were a building, it would be the 12th tallest in Los Angeles. If it were an elephant graveyard, it would contain the entire elephant population of the planet, 15 million elephants times 20. Or you could fit every car made in Detroit in the last 15 years in there, if it was an auto graveyard. Now, you multiply this mountain by 3, that's how much trash America makes in a year. And that would be every car made in Detroit since World War II. So, it's big. Funny thing is, the biggest component of our trash, this is the fascinating part, and think about this when you wonder if one person can really change something about their waste stream or have an impact. Packaging and containers, the whole disposable economy, that's the biggest part of our trash. The stuff that we pay for and then instantly toss away. The plastic forks, the plastic water bottles. We think we're recycling those. Most of those do not get recycled. Most of them are still, on a national basis, headed to the landfill. And that's why our trash is twice as much per capita as it was in 1960. Junk mail, this is my favorite perverse incentive to make waste, which riddles our economy and society. This artist made junk mail out of a fraction of a week's worth of San Francisco junk mail. And here's a product nobody wants, incredibly wasteful, and we're subsidizing it. 2 ways. One, artificially low postal rate that the rest of our mailing supports, and secondly, they don't have to clean up their mess. We do. Taxpayers, government have to clean it up. So it's an unsustainable business model to send out junk mail, except they don't have to carry their own freight. And so we are perpetuating waste. 1 out of 100 pounds going to the landfill. Not recycling, a landfill. 1 out of 100 pounds, junk mail. So these artists were a very cool element of the book, and this is something that a lot of students were interested in and wanted to sort of replicate. And this has been going on for years in San Francisco. Look at the things that they come up with. It's a bits of styrofoam and glue, life-size Hummer, everything found at the dump, including the glue. That's the mission of these artists. Shelters made out of scrap wood. This is a cool one. Reenacted the Inferno with trash marionettes. That was a good one. Lauren DeCosio, she's a seamstress. She makes sewn art. These are objects that she found and recreated. But she freaked out when it was time to get started this. She said, how am I going to do my work? I need my sewing kit. I need my threads. I need my scissors. I need my needles. And the old hands who had done this said, don't worry. If you need it, it will come. And within a week, she had not 1, but 2 professional class sewing seamstress kits. Everything she needed and then some. She says, it's better than my stuff. And you know what happened is somebody died, somebody got foreclosed on, and somebody's treasures became trash, because that's what we do. It's just easy to throw it away. You stand at the top of that mountain of trash, Puente Hills, garbage mountain. I saw a semi of hot tubs getting dumped. I said, what are you doing? They didn't even look like they've ever been used. No, they haven't been used. They're last year's model. This is what we do. Pianos. Well, nobody wanted it, so we threw it away. Clothes, beds, furniture. It's not all just packaging and instant trash. It's also stuff that has incredible value, which of course is the purpose of this venture, to show how much value is in what we're throwing away. School kids come through there all the time touring this facility, and they come from all over the country to do it. All right, the last little piece that I wanted to mention is the plastic ocean pollution. This is something everybody is vitally interested in. I met and wrote about Miriam Goldstein, marine biologist. She's hot on the trail of plastic in the ocean. You've probably all heard about this floating landfill the size of Texas. It doesn't exist. What does exist are these tiny particles of plastic. Plastic doesn't degrade, it doesn't decompose, it isn't absorbed by nature, but it does break up from wave action and sun and becomes about the size, after a while, of plankton, which is then consumed by the little fish that feed on plankton and lie at the bottom of the food chain, our food chain. And it also, and this is what Miriam explained to me, they're perfect delivery vehicles for the toxins that are dumped and spilled in the ocean but are not water soluble, and they're always looking for something to take a ride on. And guess what? We are part of a vast 60-year experiment in which we are sending into the ocean the weight equivalent of 40 of those aircraft carriers of plastic every year. It's not a very happy experiment. So, and again, a perverse incentive. Who's responsible for doing something about that issue? The makers of that mess, of that plastic? No consequence, no cost, which is why we have products like those wonderful exfoliating scrubs. Anybody use those? You know what the little scrubbing agents are, right? Plastic, right down the drain, into the ocean, into us. Great idea. All right, so the flip side. The good news, because waste really is something we can have an impact on, and people are doing it. I mean, if a big bag company can lower its landfilling by 80%, and this is real, it's not greenwashing, it's true, there's got to be something to it, right? Zero waste, are they doing it because Walmart wants to be a green good citizen? No, they're doing it because it makes them a lot of money to do that. Because again, grandma's right, being less wasteful is a good thing. So, on the smaller level, communities and motivated by individuals who are pressuring them are doing things like banning plastic bags. Well, that doesn't sound like much. That's not a big part of the waste stream. Andy Keller, who founded Chico Bags, one of the pioneers in reusable bags, environmentally friendly ones, says, plastic bags are the gateway drug. But if you take it away, you start thinking, well, what can I do next? And actually, they are a significant source of ocean-borne plastic particles, so it is meaningful. That's Andy and his bag monster guys there on the right. So LA imposes a ban on plastic bags and a dime charge on paper bags. And I was there when they started. I was at Trader Joe's, and people were like carrying out their canned stuff and dropping it on their toes in the parking lot. They're really angry about it. A year later, 75% reduction in the use of single-use bags. 75%, one dime. They didn't want to pay the dime, damn dime. Talk about motivation. So lastly, the Johnson family, the zero waste family, the mason jar family. That's what her cupboard looks like. They approached, this was Bea Johnson's idea, but the family went along. Their idea was, let's ask some questions before we buy things. Is there a reusable alternative? Can I buy my food fresh instead of packaged and processed? Then you get a health benefit and a waste benefit. Do I need this? Can I buy it used? Craigslist is one of the great waste reducers on the planet, bigger than Walmart. This thoughtful approach to consumption, as I said in that earlier slide, has reduced their household expenses 40%. Their kid, their middle schooler, goes to school with his lunch wrapped in a napkin, a cloth napkin. He learned this Japanese folding technique. And his sandwich, his apple, his beverage, everything goes in there. It becomes his placemat, then it becomes his napkin. He takes it home and does it over again. The zero-waste lunch. Everybody thought that was so cool. Half the school started asking him to teach him the folding technique. I was at Palos Verdes High School. They were trying to adopt a more zero-waste approach, and they had recycling bins all over the campus. And afterwards, we had this Q&A, and this girl says, "Oh, you know, it's just so hard. I'm carrying my books, I got my phone, I'm going to class, and I got to get rid of my trash. And there's a trash can with no lid and a recycling bin with a lid, and it's just too much trouble, so I just throw it in the trash." And everybody's kind of nodding and saying, "Yeah, we're going to do that too." And you can see the trash cans all have recyclables in it. And I say, "Well, is there something the school could do, some kind of incentive that would make you take the trouble to do that?" And so she says, "Yeah, I'd like a cookie." And everybody did just what you did. They laughed. And I turned to the principal. I said, "Can you get some cookies? Because, if the 102 tons sounds like a lot, but if a dime or a napkin or a cookie can make a difference, maybe it's not that big." So, thank you. Oh, wait. I got to show you the scary picture from the Penguin Speakers Bureau. So thank you, Penguin Speakers Bureau.